Hey guys, and welcome to the first vlog of 2024. Well, here we are. There's a lot to go through. It's been a bit of an eventful year so far. There's quite a few topics, so we're going to get right into that. And while we talk about some different things, we're going to be painting this big guy. Now, as some of you might know, I'm not a huge fan of painting dragons. It's not my favorite topic. I like the character, I like the model, I like everything about dragons, but painting them isn't for me. And everyone has something about, in this hobby that they, dislike doing. It could be building, could be painting, could be, anything. But, for me specifically, it's painting these big models. And what I don't like about it is doing these large flat areas like the wings, repetitive elements like the scales, that sort of thing. I don't know, it just gets under my skin a little bit, and it definitely kills my mood when I'm painting. So I thought this would be a great little topic for us to go through while we go through the channel news and hobby news and the Blight of Gods news that I have for my own minis as we come into this year. A whole range of different topics we're going to be talking about, but the informal topic for this one will be how to tackle something that you don't really want to paint, and going through the sort of techniques we'll be using. So the airbrush will be used on this one, dry brushing, etc. A lot of fast techniques to get this one done quickly. My time frame for him should be somewhere between 1 and 3 days is what I'm looking at trying to do. Probably 2 days, but it might go to 3. That's the kind of time frame on this one. So we'll see how far I get and how long it actually takes me, but that's the kind of goal here. And when you're trying to tackle something like a mini you don't really want to paint, but you need it for your army, that sort of thing, then you're looking at sort of strategies to kind of tackle it in a way that doesn't totally kill your mood, right? Like it still makes it enjoyable for you. So I think that'll be a fun one to talk about. But before we get to that, we'll get on to all of the news and the various things that have happened over the course of this year, and quite a bit, including some squatting of old models for AOS, which is very sad. And we'll talk briefly on that as well, because I do think that's a very sad thing to happen in the hobby. And we'll be discussing a lot more than that. Adepticon happened, and we've got new models there too. So a lot to go through. So I'll stop waffling on and let's get started, eh? Okay, so channel news. Well, we've got AOS 4 coming, and we've seen plenty of articles come out and, giving us a little bit of a taste. By the time this video comes out, there'll probably have been more articles released, but as of this video, we've had a fair few up until looking at War Scrolls, the way the turn order works, the various color coding, etc. And if I'm really good, I'll be putting up some of the images of that as we're talking about it. But we've got, quite a bit to go through there, and there are other channels that go more in depth on this. This is just more of an update to let people know if they don't know what's coming. And, and that's been really interesting. From my point of view, it does seem relatively positive for the most part. There are some worrying elements to some of these new rules, and the way it's sort of, I guess, it's a lot of, marketing words or catchy phrase words, this sort of thing, that are kind of thrown around with this edition, which I don't particularly, am a huge fan of. I think that doesn't bode well for the community as a whole. There are some, if you read between the lines in some of these articles, it does sort of suggest, some possible negative elements going forward. Things like, I think that Matt Rose guy talking about how, as an example, they may not actually update or fix things, live on their Warhammer community articles, like patch FAQs, things like that. They might just put it inside of a publication. Well, that means you have to buy it. There's certain implications there for the future of the game and how it's supported from a competitive standpoint that might be a little bit problematic. But we'll wait and see. I'm going to hold my guns on how I feel about all that until I actually see it roll out. I don't think that they can really do that ultimately. I don't think the community will be very happy, and they will fold and change if that is something they're planning. This has happened in the past. The community does have the ability to push them in the right direction when it comes to serious sort of lapses of judgment when it comes to certain ways in which they support the games and the hobby generally. So we do have some level of influence, and I think that if they chose not to support the game via updates and so on live on the net, then that would probably at least their 3-month cycles they've been doing now and that sort of thing with their battle scroll updates, then I think that they'd see a big backlash from that, because it is required. If you're gonna make a game that is competitive, you do need some sort of live updating of the game, because and a free one as well. It can't be a paid one. You can put some paid elements, obviously it's a business, that sort of thing, but you do need to be updating, because at the end of the day, these are faults, that you have to fix. They've made a product that has faults, so therefore it's on them to fix those, to make it a better product. Because even though they don't see the game as a product, and this is also stated by Matt Rose, I think that's his name, isn't it? That he calls it a platform. Well, that's a very, very significant difference to considering it the game as a product in and of itself. And this is a problem that's gone back for years and years with Games Workshop, is that their mission statement is to make the best miniatures in the world, but they don't include game as part of that product statement, as part of that statement. So they don't see the game as a product, they see it as a platform. And we all know this, it's a marketing tool for selling miniatures and books. That's how they see it, which means that what that means is that the funding and resources that they give to the game as a product in and of itself aren't very huge. We all know that these designers are only getting paid minimum wages, and in some cases less than a lot of other industries, most industries. I know this because I used to work for Games Workshop here in Australia, and I was thinking of going and working in England. There was a time where I was going to transfer over there. And after I saw the pay packets they were getting, even in the retail side of the business, I was like, maybe not, because I would have found it very hard to live. I've got no idea how they manage to live on the wages they're doing. But that's a different topic for another time. But we do know that it is a bit under-resourced, and there isn't many people in that studio actually looking after the rules. And so because of that, what you end up with is this sort of tension, and it's been going on in Games Workshop forever. We've all experienced it. So, however, having said that, there are some smart people in that design team, and I do think that they are trying their best. It's not necessarily their fault, and we can never know exactly what the balance is of power when it comes to making these choices. But just from an overall, broad scope view, if the company doesn't have games as part of their mission statement, then it's not going to be a huge part. And as I've said, we have seen the phrase that it is a platform, not a game. They don't see it that way, which means it's a marketing tool. That's what a platform is, right? Like Instagram is a platform, right? Social media is a platform. A platform is something that is a space where you put something on top of it, right? And that's the thing that you're showing, right? It's implicit in the word that implies that. So anyway, I don't want to go too much waffling on this, but there are some concerns. But ultimately, in terms of game mechanics, I am enjoying it. I think that there's a lot there that will be good, and it is very similar to 3rd edition so far from what I've seen. There's not a huge bit of difference. We've got some differences in terms of list construction, that sort of thing, which is from a competitive point of view is probably going to narrow the choices, but from a casual point of view will broaden it. So the casual players will have more of a broad scope, i.e. via auxiliary units, because I doubt that many casual games will worry about the whole CP thing. If you were playing a casual game, I would just remove that rule where you get the extra CP for having more auxiliaries. If I was playing a game with a friend, I would just ignore that and allow both of us to create whatever list we wanted to enjoy that broader scope that the game is offering, and remove that really big penalty for having more drops. You already get a penalty for having more drops, which is that your opponent's going to get to choose the priority order in the first turn, and that's a big enough downside as far as I can tell from playing this game, that you don't need to additionally add on a further harsh penalty like that when you're playing a casual game. In the competitive side, what that means is, as I said, the narrowing. All that means is no competitive player, tournament player, is ever going to take auxiliary units. I don't think a single unit in this game is going to be worth 5 CP over the course of the game, so you're probably never going to see it, and it's just going to be somewhere between 2 and 4 drops, so 2 and 4 regiments, and that's it. So that's pretty much how that's going to work. I mean, everyone knows that. If you're a competitive player, you'll instantly see what the story is, but from a casual point of view, there could be some scope for broader list building, but not not really from competitive. It is looking slightly narrower in terms of what you're going to be choosing, as the heroes are keyword locked to units, and that dictates what goes in the regiment. It's going to be a tighter thing to actually design a competitive list that you want. So not for all armies, but I'm sure there's going to be some problems with some armies not getting the right keyword, flexibility, that sort of thing, because that really requires the designers to be very much on point with that. And as we know, they're underfunded, so the chances that they're going to have the time to be able to make sure that all units get that kind of flexibility is unlikely. It might be because they've gone through all the units, maybe, but there's going to be some winners and losers there, I'm sure. But overall, as a broad scope thing, it is looking nice. Now we'll move on to Stormcast now, and we've got some new Stormcast, and this goes on to the squatting of old models. So yeah, what a shame. I don't know what else to say about it, but it really sucks, right? If you're experiencing, the repercussions of this squatting for, Beastman, Skaven, Stormcast, and others, is there any more? Is Beastman, Skaven, the whole Beastman range is going, Beasts of Chaos, and we've got Stormcast and a number of other models as well. It's not just those. If there's any more that you know of, please put them in the chat. In the down there, and we'll discuss it. But yeah, in my club specifically, we have one of our guys that does play beasts, and he's now basically got a year's left on that army, and then he's got to either change armies or play old world, right? So that it's really sad, and I don't really know what else to say other than that. We could go into the drama of it and the specifics. There are other channels that probably talk about that in more detail better than I can. I'm only coming from third-hand information or fourth-hand information from what I've gleaned from people talking about it that gives me the idea of why this is happening and that sort of thing. Probably Rob, the Honest Wargamer, is the one to look at if you want to get a better insight into why these dramas happen with these squatting ideas and the separation of products into the different games. So that's probably someone to look at if you want to get a better insight into it. But ultimately, it sucks, right? And there are definitely better ways to handle this. At least they've given a year out warning, but that's like the bare minimum that they could do. And I could go into my own personal views on this, but these kind of videos that I make on YouTube aren't really about, getting into those type of topics deeply, as I feel that the best thing you can do if you are experiencing this is to speak to someone in person. So your mates, your friends at a hobby store, people that that you trust. Speaking online is probably the last resort that you can do. If you're in a situation where you don't have anyone to talk to, and I recognize that not everyone does, then definitely you have to speak out online with people that you trust. So, hobby creators, anyone that that in Discords, etc., in streams, even this video, if you trust me to talk about it, you're welcome to put any comments you like into the on this video, and I'll try to read those and get into some discourse with you. If you're feeling upset, that's perfectly acceptable, and you're have every right to feel bad about it, right? In some cases, people have lost thousands of dollars worth of miniatures for the game anyway, and that really sucks. So yeah, by all means, talk to someone. I definitely think in person is the best way to do it. Get that real human interaction. That is the best one. If you can't do that, then the next best thing is online. And in either case, you should talk about it. It's right that you do, and get it off your chest. Bottling it up and getting very angry is not the way to go. You want to release those tensions because it's not your fault, right? This is just bad choices from a company, and you shouldn't allow that to affect your hobby. This is a creative space. As I've said, we're all artists of sorts, even if you don't think so, and you're engaging in a creative pursuit, and it's very, very cathartic, therapeutic, and a very important part of the human experience. And so you don't want anything that a cold, vacuous decision from a company, from a corporation, to affect that. You want to arm yourself against that, because it can be really toxic for the individual, and the company's not gonna be there to help you, right? But your friends and family, the people that you trust and that are around you, and anyone else that you look up to or trust, they're the people that you go to, right, for support and help. So and if you don't have any of that, then you've got plenty of other resources and so on that you can go to talk to people about things like this, because it is important to talk. So that's all I'll say about on that topic. But as we move past the squatting, we go on to the new Stormcast, and it's looking interesting. I'm not going to say what I think about it totally just yet. But we are seeing some interesting design choices. We know that the Liberators were going to look like that. It'll be interesting to see, how the rest of the range looks and how many of the old models that they're squatting get redone for this edition or in the future, into future editions. But it is looking interesting. I mean, I play Stormcast. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. I've liked Ionis and other releases that they've been releasing. So I am keen to see what they're going to do with it from that standpoint, from the miniatures side of their business. It is looking exciting. So that's pretty cool there. And then we've got Adepticon, and a number of releases were shown for Adepticon. And as I said, if I'm good, I'm going to be showing some of that now. We've also got Gnomes from Blood Bowl coming out as well. So from Adepticon we had the Old World Dwarves, which is looking really exciting. They should be coming out shortly, if not already by the time this video comes out. We've seen the Night Lords for 40k Kill Team. They look really cool. There might be something interesting coming along those lines on this channel for that. Not Kill Team, but Night Lords. We'll see how we go. And that's looking really cool as well. That Slayer King from Old World is amazing, and possibly if I get my hands on one, I'll definitely do one for the channel. I don't know about a whole dwarf army yet, but certainly some of those models look pretty cool, and I'd be happy to paint them, get back into the Old World flavor for dwarves. So there's a number of things there. That Gnome Blood Bowl team is obviously a winner. What a cool team. I'm sure it's going to sell out instantly. There's a number of really cool releases there that I think really hit tick a lot of the boxes, for what we want to see in miniatures. So that's been really nice to see. So on those notes, it's very positive. So now we'll move on to my Blight of Gods news and what I've been doing for my own brand. So Blight of Gods, well, it's been a great year so far. It's been really cool designing these minis and getting them ready for release. As of this video, they should at least be up to the whites, I think, the Undying Whites that I've released so far. If not, they're just coming. I think this video will go after that. So that should have already released. And I've been really enjoying the process of trying to produce on a regular schedule, and that's been going pretty well. I think my goal for this year, as I said before from the last vlog, was to try to do a full 12 months worth of releases. It looks like it's going to be more like 10 release spots, I think, for the year, and 2 months where there'll be a bit of a gap. So sometime between the end of the year, there'll be a little bit of a gap, and then it'll start releasing again. And that's just to help me catch up, so I can get onto the next set, which is after the Undying Cult. It'll be the Darkspawn, which is my sort of aquatic demon faction. And you can see all the concepts for a lot of these characters on my website. So in the minions and character section, there's a lot of portrait sculpts that I've done of these characters and named heroes and that sort of thing. So a lot of it is there. It's just obviously redoing new sculpts for 32mm scale or heroic scale, so they're a little bit oversized and 32mm. But it's going to be really fun to get into that. So it looks like my Darkspawn, I was going to start releasing at the end of this year, but it looks like it'll be for next year. So I'm looking like possibly a bi-monthly schedule next year, just to give me some time to do play testing for the game that these things are all part of. And I've talked about that before, but I'm not going to go too much into the game now, although I really love to. It's very exciting to be finally getting to a point where it's getting close to finish. But all these minis are actually designed for a game, so as well as being usable in other tabletop war games, but it is designed for that. So and on release I should have at least 2 factions completed and supported, and that'll be really cool. But that's for the future. We'll talk about that more next year. But that's looking like the rough schedule at the moment. So everything's going really well. We've got tutorials out for that and so on, and the Undying Cult will continue to release over the year, and there'll be some more videos on that as the heroes release, which is really awesome. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I think that'll be really cool. So now we'll move on to some of the channel news. So the channel is looking really good. We're progressing along. People seem to be enjoying the videos that I'm releasing, so that's really great. And I have started on the list that I sort of talked about at the end of last year at the Christmas special, and we're getting right into that. We're going to have AOS 4 coming very shortly, so there'll be videos for that. And obviously my Chaos Dwarf, Chaos Warrior sort of combo there, my old world content. So we'll be doing some videos on that. I've managed to pick up another box of those Hashut Warriors, so I've got extra helmets. months, now that those Warcry warbands are getting pulled from the range. Luckily, I've got an extra set of those, so that's great. So if there's anything there that you really want, you should really go out to your local hobby stores and pick some of those up, because they are leaving. Well, at least a lot of them are. Not all of them, but quite a few of them are. So yeah, we've got that sorted out, so that'll be really fun for the future. And as I said, there's Infinity. My little teaser photo on that I posted a little while back there showed some of the little teasers. And yes, Infinity is coming. There's a video for them for a really cool little mini that I want to paint. And you know, a lot of other systems, they're still coming. And obviously you've seen a few of those in that teaser photo, but there's more on top of that. So I've got quite a packed second half of this year, and I have cut back on some of those Blight of Gods videos because they're sort of duplicates of the same scheme, so I felt there was no need to really double up. So some of these minis, as they come out, you'll still see the release. I'll probably do a showcase video, but full tutorials on some of the next ones coming out I probably will skip, just so it's not repeating the same color scheme too many times. I do like to do that. You know, obviously you've seen that many times on the channel, and there is a reason for that. It helps for learning. So you get to see it in different modes, getting done in specifics on key techniques, and then as a whole, and in a more informal format like this, or in the hobby chats where we talk about the topic and I paint alongside that. I like to do these type of different video formats for the same scheme. It helps you know, build your ability to absorb the information and be able to replicate it how you like. So that's something that is actually intentional. I never release any technique or recipe or scheme in isolation. It's always in conjunction with other video formats, so that you get more out of it. So if you see something you like on the channel and you think, oh, that's really great, 9 times out of 10 I will have another video on the subject, you know, focusing on a different area of that scheme or the scheme as a whole. So that's something that will be going forward, where we've got more videos coming in that way, and that's really cool. So yeah, in terms of tech and that sort of thing, as I said on the last vlog, you know, I'm pretty happy with the setup so far. So there's nothing really changing there. Really, the next upgrade is quite expensive, so I kind of have to hold off on that until I have enough money to, you know, really step it up to the next level, which would be a much more high-end camera, you know, doing multiple views, that sort of thing. And that requires a bit more editing and so on. Not my rough and ready style, where it's all in one take. If you haven't realized that, there is no script, and I just go straight into it. So we don't do editing here. I composite, you know, we composite the footage together, but you know, proper edits with like B-reel and everything like that is just not possible in my setup at the moment. But you know, I go for a very thematic, clean style. It's just very you know, easy to follow sort of style. It's not as flashy as some formats, but I think it works for what I'm presenting, so that's cool. And if you have any ideas and you'd like to see anything more for the channel, then by all means put it in the comments. I do listen and pay attention to it, and over the years some of the adjustments that I've done to these videos has been because of people asking, like putting the paint scheme at the beginning and end, like the paint list at the beginning and end of every video. That was because people were either struggling to find it or didn't see it. You know, some people only look at parts of a video, so I've made sure it's at both ends, so that regardless of which bit you're looking at, you'll probably come across it, and that sort of thing, and having them pop up while I'm using the colors, you know, you see it in the top right hand corner. So that's all things that have come about through people suggesting things. So I do definitely listen, and I try to incorporate as much of that as possible. So yeah, that's pretty much it for, you know, we're just rocking on with the videos and continuing. I'm still trying to get that terrain video done, but I'm hoping I can fit that in. It keeps getting pushed back, but there's going to be a point where I need to do some terrain building for Blight of Gods related promo photo stuff. So once I get onto that, I'll take a look at trying to do that video as well. So you probably will see that sometime later in the year. So now that we've got that all out of the way, hopefully I haven't finished painting this dragon. There's still some more footage of me painting it, because this is a speed paint, so I will be fairly fast at doing this dragon. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time. We're going to cut right to it. So we may as well get onto that informal topic and talk about painting something you hate. So painting something you hate. Well, you know, as you're seeing, I mean, hate's a strong word, isn't it? I mean, I don't really mean that exactly, but you know, there's definitely minis that you'll have, you know, that are, sort of subject matter that you don't really want to paint too much, and it doesn't really inspire you. And for me, that's these sort of, not the dragon itself, the design or the concept of a dragon, but just the kind of design shapes that it ends up making. So these sort of large wing shapes, that sort of thing. I don't get a huge kick out of doing it, and lots of repetitive edges like on scales, because I'm one of those OCD people that end up wanting to line highlight every single one. So it's very hard for me to not do that. And so, that ends up really drawing out the amount of time that it takes to paint something like that. So for those sorts of minis, that's usually why I don't really like doing it. But I try to push through that. I try to, tackle it. I've done it before. You've seen the Soul Blight dragon I did with the converted vampire on top. So I have tackled the larger dragons at times and had a go at it. But it is a long process. But with this one, I definitely wanted to do a much more speed up kind of version, and utilize a lot of those techniques that you use to cut down on the time. So as you've seen me waffling on here, you've seen in this video me painting this. Well, we started with what are the sorts of tools that you have at your disposal to speed up? Well, you have airbrushes, and you've seen me do that. We're utilizing an airbrush to help speed up and block out those colors and get those big sort of tonalities down, highlights and shadows, etc. That's one great way to speed up on a large model like this. Utilizing dry brushing, it's a great technique. Everyone can learn it. It's a nice, easy one, and if you use it in conjunction with line highlighting and other layered processes as part of a process, dry brushing can be a really, really great way of finishing a model. I mean, you have people like Artis Opus and those guys that I think is it Byron, his name is, that showcases dry brushing as a finishing technique, and you see some very high done work from him. But for most people, that's obviously a very skilled person doing that. But for most people, it's you're probably better off, as I do, putting it in as part of a larger process so it gets blended in with the overall result. I find that ends up being a slightly more satisfying version, unless you're a diehard dry brush fan and you just want to try to get to that high level like Artis Opus does, then that's perfectly acceptable too. But here we're using it as part of a layered process. So what do I mean by that? I mean that it's blocking out a lot of the mid-tone highlighting and those sorts of steps, and then I'm coming back in and I'm picking out the focal areas, so the face, around the hands, the feet, etc. On a dragon like this, it's anywhere where the claws are, that sort of thing, those key points around the model, end of the tail, etc. And then I'm going back in and doing line highlighting over that, and what that does is it crisps up the highlights and gives you some sharp focus. So you get the softer dry brush highlights, which are kind of an out of focus highlight, and then you get that nice sharp focused highlight. And what that does is make it more interesting and gives you the focal point where your eye needs to look, where it wants to rest on, and that's the face, right, and those key areas. And I do that on many different subjects here on the channel. You've seen it when I do my color glazing into brass armor, like for the Stormcast or even my Blight of Gods minis. Any of them that you see where I do that, I do incorporate dry brushing in that mid step, and then I go back in and I line highlight, and that really does help out a lot. And you'll notice that yourself if you do it. So it's very simple. It does take a little bit more time, but I feel like that you get a much punchier result from it, and it makes you like the model at the end a lot more, because at a glance it does feel just as good as any other model that you've painted. You look at it and you think, oh, that's great, yeah. And obviously if you really look closely, you might see some areas that aren't quite as well defined as others, but overall it is a really nice blended way to get some good definition in your model. So they're the main steps, and then we have things like obviously contrast paints, shade colors or washes, inks, that sort of thing. And I'm not using it here, but also oil washes, they can be really good to speed things up. And then you've also got to decide on your undercoat. So here I'm going from a black, but if you were using contrast methods and that sort of thing, or you were doing something with oil washes or other methods like that, then you might actually do a zenithal, which is your black with the white sprayed from above. So you get the light hitting the model from above. So you get that tonality from white to black and all the shades in between. So you're showcasing where the sun is hitting the model, and then your contrast paints and your washes and your oil washes help to saturate that with with color, right? And so you get all the values from that under sketch, that underpainting, and then you get all your color work over the top in the form of those washes. So you could do it that way as well. I find that that's great on slightly smaller minis. On a really large mini like this, I find that a little bit tricky to control. So I tend not to want to do that on a large model, and it won't fit in with the rest of my minis. So I'm choosing a technique that fits in, and that's another sort of question that you've got to answer, right? Which technique is going to be the one that works best in the wider context of your collection? And if that happens to be contrast, then fantastic. But if you're using a very different method on the rest of your minis, again, if you've got the OCD like me, then you're going to want to make them fit in with that, right? So yeah, so we've got those techniques down. We've decided on what that is, and now I've gone through and started to produce it. And you know, and luckily for me, this is a black dragon. So again, choosing a color scheme which is very simple, that isn't going to overly you know, cost you for time. So the biggest step on this whole mini will be when I re-black out the black skin and the scales after the airbrushing step. So that's pretty much the longest stage of the whole thing, is recutting in all of that black around the edges where the airbrush colors and so on meet, to clean up the model. And that's really the biggest step of this, because it might take 2 or 3 coats of black to get that really nice deep luster. If you've seen any of the photos of my Stormcast and you look at those black cloaks, that's because they have several layers of Abaddon black. It's not just one, and that gives you a much deeper, richer satin black, which makes it look more black. I like that sort of you know, emo goth style black. I want them to really have that nice deep rich black, because it really sets it off against whatever you have in contrast with it, like metallics or other colors. It really does help to bring those out. It's a good frame, a good canvas. So yeah, that's pretty much the longest step. And then all you're doing then is just focusing attention on very small areas on the model, like as I said, around the face, and spending time on those. So you speed up in other areas, the main bulk of the model, and then you slow down for those key focal areas like the face and around the chest and so on, and claws, the hands. If it's holding a weapon, then you do the weapon, and that's where you slow down, just like you're painting like a little miniature, right? That's the sort of size and area that you're painting is roughly like a mini. So you take that time like as if it was a mini. And what you'll find is, like I alluded to earlier, is that the overall finish will be much higher, and you'll be much more happy with the result. What I find, I've done many speed paint armies where you just thrash through the whole lot and you do everything with the same sort of level of technique. And what I find is that if you do that, although it gets it done very fast, they're often the minis that you don't really like or play with very much. I often find that those kinds of armies that I've painted in the past just get put into a figure case and never touched again. And I tend to like the ones that I spent more time on and I lovingly cared for and that sort of thing. No matter what your skill level is or stage in the process, something that you've actually spent time and care on generally is the thing you're going to like a lot more. So I find that I do like to slow down and spend that time on those key areas, because it makes me feel like I like the model a little bit more. Even if it's a model that I don't really enjoy painting in total. You know, one thing I really love is painting jaws, so painting teeth and claws and things like that. So thankfully the dragon does have that, so I actually enjoy doing that. I like sculpting that a lot too. You'll see, if you look at my Blight of Gods website, you'll see tons of open mouthed, you know, toothy grins, that sort of thing, from lots of monsters and ghouls and so on. And I really enjoy designing those kind of mouth structures. I think they're really fun to do. You know, so painting them is also fun. So, you know, you find those moments where you can actually enjoy it, and that's really the best tactic. Is, you know, okay, what about the model don't you like? As I said, I've pinpointed what I don't like about painting a large dragon, and then trying to find an area of the model that you do like, and then making sure that you do spend time on that, and that will help you, you know, come to terms with the prospect of sitting here and painting this thing for whatever length of time you're going to choose to do. And as I said before, you know, I also allotted a time that I was going to take on this, so I know how much time I'm going to spend, and I'm not really going to go over that. And so that's also a great way to make sure it doesn't go on forever. You know, you give yourself a manageable time frame, and then you try to stick to that as near enough as you can, and that will also improve your enjoyment of the process, so that you don't it doesn't become like a massive chore that takes weeks and weeks. That would be really, really terrible. Unless you're a real glutton for punishment and you really want to get it to match the rest of your army, then you can. In the case of my Soulblight zombie dragon, even though that was a slightly speedier technique, it does take longer because everything was with a brush. There was no airbrushing on that. So it did take longer. It took about, I think, about a month to get through that. Not everyday painting, but still, over the course of a month it took. So, but with the airbrush method here and the dry brushing and so on, and these sort of targeted areas, you're looking at a much faster time frame. So yeah, I think we'll leave it there. I think I've waffled on long enough. I hope that's been somewhat informative or enjoyable to listen to, if anyone's actually still listening to this at the end, because this is a slightly longer vlog than I would normally do. But I hope you've enjoyed that. I've had a lot of fun, coming into this year, doing the sculpting, doing these videos and producing them for you. And I hope you've enjoyed that. And yeah, we'll take a little listen to my closing thoughts, as by the time you hear this outro, it will be probably a few days later, as I will have finished the dragon, and we can have a little chat about it and see how I've gone. And I'll show you a nice sweet image of the list that I'm hoping to run for the end of 3rd edition. So there's a tournament coming up here in Australia that I'm going to go to, and I'm taking my list, and I'll show you the pic of that whole list with the dragon in it, to show you how this kind of speed technique can fit into the rest of your army and how it looks. And I think that'll be really fun too. So with that out of the way, let's see my closing thoughts and that nice pic at the end. Wow, well, there we go, all done. What a journey. So I think this finally, all told, took me about 16 hours, I think. So I got within my 2-day goal. I thought maybe 1 to 3 days, but 2 days is what we got it in, which is really cool. So as a speed painting technique, I guess this one was successful. And you can see how I've gone. I mean, I've tried to focus on those key areas. I did some line highlighting here and there to really sharpen it up and really allow the dry brushing to tell the rest of the story over the bulk of the dragon. So you end up with something that, if you look close, you can see the sort of softer marks and that sort of thing. But, on the tabletop and further away, you get those nice sharp details. Those highlights are around the face and the color, and that draws your eye, and you don't notice those other areas. And, it'll sit nicely within the rest of my collection. So that's the main thing. So you feel good about it. Anytime you're trying to tackle something that you don't really want to paint, that's the goal, right? To try to just meet that level where you're happy with it and it can fit in with the rest of your collection. And then you'll be more likely to want to use it and play with it, that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm really happy with how it came out. I'm glad it only took 2 days. An extra day would have really, really killed me, but it's good. It worked. And so I've still got to do Crondus. So at some point I'll do a proper how to paint tutorial on how to do this. If you're interested in trying this out, if dragons aren't your thing, like me, and you want to go for something a bit faster, then I do have to do him as well. So we'll probably do that later in the year, something like that. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. So I'll be taking this guy with a list, Stormcast list, to a tournament for the end of 3rd edition, which is going to be really cool. And I'll do a nice image with him and all the Stormcasts that go with him in the list, just to show you how it looks when he's all together with the army, and how he fits in with this sort of color scheme. But yeah, I'm really happy with it. I'm looking forward to that final tournament and the last hurrah for 3rd edition and moving on to 4th edition. It should be a pretty good time. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and all the various sections, talking about what's coming up and all those sorts of things in the news, and my Blight of Gods stuff as well. And the unfortunate aspects of models getting culled and that sort of thing from Games Workshop, which is always a sad thing. But I hope that overall, things are positive, I guess. I would hope so, for everyone with their hobby. And 4th edition is looking pretty cool, and hopefully moving forward it'll be a bit of fun, and we can move past these sort of I guess sadder aspects of the hobby. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this. Please hit that like button, subscribe button, it really helps me out, and I guess I'll catch you on the next one.